Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight we will continue Gemara Masechah Berachot. We are on Daf Chaf Hey Amud Bet 25B, the very top. Tonight's shiur is dedicated to the refuah shlema of Binyamin ben Zilpah. Elna refana lo betoch shar cholei Yisrael v'chein yiratzon v'nomar amen. B'ezras Hashem, we're praying yiratzon. We should hear good news and refuah shlema for our dear friend Binyamin ben Zilpah and everyone else who needs it. And we also pray for Shalom al Israel. Okay, let's continue. We are now going to move on to the next section of our Mishnah. Yeah, please, thank you. The next section of our Mishnah. In order to do that, I'm going to go back. We're on Chaf Hei Amud Bet 25B on the top. If you're looking at the article, it's 25B1, right on the top. That's where we left off. Well, what I want to do is I want to go to the Mishnah, which is on 22b, I believe. I'll share it on the screen so that we could remind ourselves what the Mishnah said, because we're going to continue with our analysis of the Mishnah. It's been a while. So if you go to 22b, there's the Mishnah toward the bottom. If you in the art scroll, it's 22b3. And this is what it said. Okay, we were speaking at that point, we were very much into the concept of a Baal Keri, who was someone, a male who had a seminal emission. And there we were speaking about what happens if a Baal Keri has to go to the mikveh, and that requirement of a Baal Keri to go to the mikveh, what type of a requirement was it? It's a requirement before someone wants to recite Shema or study Torah or read mishnayot. We spend a lot of time speaking about a Baal Keri. So this Mishnah was talking about, there's a Baal Keri in the morning, he started praying. This is the Mishnah we already learned that we're going to continue. I'm going to go through the Mishnah. Haya omed b'tfilah. This Baal Keri is praying his Amidah. V'nizkar shu Baal Keri, and he remembers that he's a Baal Keri. He remembers that he had an emission, and we had said that he should not be praying. According to this opinion, he should not be praying before he goes to the mikveh. What does our Mishnah say? Lo yafsik. Don't stop. You already started. Keep going. Ela yikatzer, but shorten it. Make the rest of the Amidah very short. Okay. So we're speaking about a Baal Keri who has to go to the mikveh. He's in the middle of his prayer. He realized that he didn't go to the mikveh, so the Mishnah says, just finish up quickly and go, wrap it up. Now, let's say it's moments before sunrise. Okay, and there's actually another Mishnah we have to see, which we'll see momentarily on Daf Tet Amud Bet. We'll see that in a moment also. But let's say it's in the morning time, right before sunrise. The Baal Keri wakes up, time for him to go to the mikveh, he goes to the mikveh. He's in the mikveh, and what happens? Yarad litbol. He's in the mikveh. Im yachol la'alot, ulitkasot, v'likrot, ad shelo teheh hanetzach hama. It's almost sunrise. Let's say he's in the lake. He's doing his mikveh outdoors in the lake. He realizes, I got 30 seconds before the sun rises, and I want to say Shema by sunrise. So what the Mishnah says, if there's enough time for him to come out of the water, cover himself up, say Shema before sunrise, Ya'aleh v'itkaseh v'ikra. So then do that. If you approximate that you can get up out of the mikveh, cover yourself, say Shema all before sunrise, do it. Ve'imlav, if not, just cover yourself up with the water of the mikveh, make sure you're covered, and say Shema in there, in the mikveh. Now, one may not cover himself with water that has a foul odor or dirty laundry water. Mea mishra is that water that was soaked in clothing that was soaked. It's like dirty laundry water. Because it has a foul smell, he would not be able to recite Shema while he's submerged in this type of water. He needs to pour water into it to dilute it, so that this way it's diluted. Okay, so this is what our Mishnah told us. Our Mishnah said that if you have enough time before sunrise to come out, get dressed, say the Shema, and be done before sunrise, then go ahead and do that. But if not, just say sunrise right where you are. Just make sure you cover yourself up with the water and then say Shema. Now, do you remember what is the latest time to recite Shema in the morning? Kings. Okay, very good. You're saying the second opinion. Very good. Elaborate, because what time? You're saying the reason why. What is the latest time one might recite Shema? One may recite Shema in the mornings. Okay, we had a project at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the Masechet, to learn some mishnayot by heart. I know there was one guy who did it.
Dalet Shaot at Chatzot.
Okay, you're talking about Shacharit from a Mishnah that we haven't even got up to. You're remembering high school, Ilan. No,
Yeah.
you didn't learn that yet. But yeah, Dalet Shaot and Chatzot is coming up in
Okay.
daf. We're almost there.
All right.
Okay, so that's the start time of Shema. Okay, you know what? Just because we let's go through it because we forgot. On Daf Tet Amud Bet on 9b, the Mishnah asks us, "Me matai korin Shema b'shacharit." What is the start time of reciting Shema in the morning? From when may one recite Shema in the morning? Mishiyakir v'techalet lavan, when he can recognize and distinguish between white wool and blue wool. Think about someone's tzitzit or a flag that has both white and blue on it. The moment that there's enough light outdoors without light pollution, that someone can see the difference and distinguish between white wool and blue wool, that's the moment you can recite Shema, which is minimal light. Pitch dark you can't, but minimal light you can. That's the starting time. Rabbi Eliezer Omer ben Techelet Lakarti, Rabbi Eliezer gives a later time because he says you have to be able to distinguish between blue and green. Distinguishing between blue and green comes later than between blue and white. Why? Similar. Yeah, because they're similar and you need more sunlight. Okay? So Rabbi Eliezer says the start time is between being able to distinguish between blue and green. The Gemara, now Rabbi Eliezer tells us when is the end time of Shema? Ad hanetzach hama, until sunrise. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the latest time one may recite Shema in the morning is sunrise. Yes, they recite Shema before sunrise. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, and Rabbi Yehoshua says ad shalosh shaot, until the end of the third hour of the day, giving a person 3 more hours over Rabbi Eliezer. Sheken derech benachim la'amod b'shalosh shaot, because that is the time that kings wake up. You said Tomer, you said princes, you said kings. Kings, this is the time that kings wake up. So what? So when the Torah says we recite Shema b'shoch b'cha when you lie down, uvkumecha when you lie up, get up. The first 3 hours are still considered time of getting up because there are people that get up at that time. And nowadays, if you're going by nowadays, we would go like what Ilan said, until Chatzot. People are sleeping until 1 p.m. But usually the way it is, when do you wake up? You wake up at sunrise. That's what they would do. People would wake up before the sun. Okay? So, our Mishnah tells us the end time of Shema, 2 opinions. What are the 2 opinions? The end time of the morning Shema, 2 opinions. Not sunset. End time of the morning Shema.
Netzach hama and Shalosh Shaot.
Hanetzach hama, sunrise, right? Not sunset. We're talking about in the morning, sunrise, or shalosh shaot, end of the third hour. Okay, so either by sunrise or end of the third hour of the day. That's the latest time of reciting Shema in the morning. Sorry, not from dawn. The start time is a machloket. From the moment someone can distinguish between white wool and blue wool, which is later than dawn. Dawn is the moment there's any light, but you still can't distinguish it. You need a little bit more time. And then it's being able to distinguish between light wool, white wool, and blue wool. And there's another opinion of Rabbi Eliezer that says even a later time, being able to distinguish between green wool and blue wool. What is it? Yes, seeing your friend, that's what all of the answers brought up in the Gemara, that they say they're actually the same time. Recognizing a friend from Arba Amot distance, not someone that you know too well, not someone that you don't know at all. Yes, this is all of the Gemara. Okay, but the key here is as follows: end time of Shema. What is it? What is the end time of Shema? Yeah, but stop going to the second answer. Start with the first answer. Sunrise. Shalosh shaot. Very good, Tomer. What is the end of the Shema in the morning? 3 hours. Why are we going backwards? It's sunrise or the end of the third hour. Okay, these are the 2 opinions. What is the last time someone can recite Shema in the morning? Sunrise or end of the third hour? It's a machloket. Rabbi Eliezer says sunrise. Rabbi Yehoshua says end of the third hour. This is what's in the Mishnah and Daf Tet. This is critical for understanding our Mishnah, because our Mishnah and Kaf Bet tells us if there's someone who's in the mikveh, right? Someone is in the mikveh in the morning, and he sees that he does the math that, oh, there's enough time for me to get out of here, get dressed, and recite Shema before sunrise, then he should do that. If not, just say it right there in the mikveh.
So Rabbi Yehoshua is wrong, basically.
Okay, say that in a different way, Ilan.
Whoever says this holds like Rabbi Eliezer.
Very good. It sounds like this mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, because this mishnah is talking about a guy who it's almost sunrise and he's in the mikveh. He's like, what should I do? I have to say Shema. It's almost sunrise. Clearly, this mishnah holds like the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says the latest time of Shema in the morning is sunrise, and not like Rabbi Yehoshua, who says the latest time of reciting Shema in the morning is 3 hours. Very good. Okay. Now, this would mean that the halacha, when you have a mishnah, another mishnah that states an opinion without bringing a machloket, it often means that that's what the rule is. So that would mean that based on our mishnah on Daf Kaf Bet, where it's the case of someone who's in the mikveh moments before sunrise, and he says, oh, you got to do something, you have to say sunrise right now. It sounds like the halacha is that the latest time for Shema is sunrise. That's what it's going to sound like. Which would mean everyone has to set their alarm for earlier tomorrow morning. That's what it would mean, right? It means the latest time for Shema, we would be holding like Rabbi Eliezer. So that's what the Gemara is going to ask now. So we're now, with that background, we're on Chaf Hei Amud Bet, 25B, and the article is 25B1. The Gemara is going to now start its analysis of that part of the Mishnah. And it says as follows: Yarad litbol, if the gentleman went into the mikveh, im yachol la'alot, if there's enough time for him to come out of the mikveh, get dressed, recite Shema before sunrise, then he should do so. That's what the Mishnah says. So lema, let us say, we can conclude from here, Tana, this Mishnah, stama, even though it's unattributed and doesn't say who said it, ki Rabbi Eliezer. It must be that he holds like Rabbi Eliezer, Da'amar, ad hanetzach hama, who's of the opinion that the latest time of Shema in the morning is sunrise. This means that our Mishnah is in accordance with Rabbi Eliezer. The implication is you have a stam Mishnah, which means an unnamed Mishnah that doesn't include any other arguing opinions. That Mishnah holds like Rabbi Eliezer, which would mean halacha is going to be like him. The Gemara is going to say, no, afilu tema Rabbi Yehoshua. You can say that even our Mishnah that talks about the guy who's in the mikveh 2 minutes before sunrise, that could still be in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua. That says you have 3 hours to say it. Why? So why is the guy in a rush to say Shema right now if he has 3 hours to say it? V'dilma vatikin. Because this person that we're talking about in the Mishnah is acting in accordance to the vatikin. Vatikin are people that are meticulous and they're very precise in their actions, and they want to recite Shema before sunrise, even though that's not the halakha. In other words, we're talking about a case of a guy who wants to recite Shema before sunrise. Okay, so what is he supposed to do if it's moments before and he's in the mikveh? It tells you if he has enough time to get up, get dressed, say Shema, to do it. If not, say it in the mikveh. It's okay. But that doesn't mean that he has to. He has up until the end of the 3 hours, potentially, if we hold like Rabbi Yehoshua. It's just that there is this practice of the vatikin, that they say Shema by sunrise. You guys ever heard of vatikin minyan? Vatikin minyan? What? You've been to one? No? Okay. There's time. Tomorrow morning, Bezrat Hashem. Yeah.
So is that Mishnah on the top bed saying it's better to do this like his way of saying Shema and of just covering yourself up than to actually just follow the other opinion?
What it is saying is that even according to Rabbi Yehoshua, who says you have until the end of the 3rd hour, he would agree that there is this practice that the pious people who are meticulous in the mitzvot do it this way. They will say Shema early. Why? Because they want to pray Shacharit at sunrise, which is the first moment to be able to pray Shacharit is at sunrise. That's the start time. So they're setting up their day so that they do the mitzvah tefillah the first moment they get the chance. So that is proper. So if this person wants to do it, the halakha is telling him how he should act. But it's not. Sorry? It's a good point. This person's practice is to recite Shema every day, like vatikin. so that he could recite shacharit afterwards. Now it happens to be in this moment he's probably not going to pray. You're right, but this practice is something that people do, and this is what this guy does, right? Rabbi Yochanan tells us, vatikin hayu gorminota iman etzachama. The vatikin, the pious individuals who are scrupulous in their performance of this mitzvot, would recite Shema with sunrise, so that they could pray shacharit right afterwards. You're right. Maybe in this case he will. Actually, no, Andrew. Maybe in this case he will. What is it telling him to do? It's telling him, if you have enough time to get up, get dressed, say Shema, then you're dressed already. You could pray the Amidah as well. He could pray the Amidah as well. I guess if he's in the mikveh, it's a good question of would he continue praying. Maybe. It's a good question. Yes, question?
Yeah, just so these people that are vatikin, first of all, if he's so strict to saying Netzachama, then why would he go to the mikveh so close to the time of saying Netzachama that would be an issue for him?
He was okay, it's a good question. You're quick to pick on this guy that woke up at 4 a.m. to go to the mikveh. But what I'll say is, sometimes you go to the mikveh and you have to wait online. It's happened to me before. And the guy before you decides that he doesn't want to just dunk once. He doesn't want to just dunk 3 times. He wants to dunk 303 times. So what do? You start honking your horn at the guy who's in the mikveh at 3 in the morning. This guy's like, come on, get out of there. So
Okay.
yeah, that could be the situation. It's actually happened to me before.
And another
Funny
question.
story. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Another question would be that if he's a vatikin and that one scenario happened where he happened to miscalculate and it's getting too close, isn't it better to just pray a little bit later and put your clothes on? I mean,
so that's okay. That's what the Mishnah here is telling us. The Mishnah is telling us no. When someone it's very interesting. If someone wants to act like vatikin, it is proper. Even Rabbi Yehoshua, who says you have until the end of the 3rd hour, he's not saying that you should use up your entire time. He also would agree that vatikin, he's saying the latest time. He's saying the latest time. But if you ask him what the vatikin should be doing, then he says the vatikin should be doing it by sunrise. So no, it's not that it's better for him to wait and do it later. Our Mishnah is telling us that this is a better way to do it, to get up, get dressed, and say it. And if someone can't, even to say it in the mikveh, as long as he's covered, which we're going to discuss. But he can't be covered with dirty water. He has to be covered with clean water. And the Gemara is going to continue to discuss this point. Yes.
It's tough to say that back on Daf Tet, and Rabbi Eliezer said sunrise. He was talking about vatikin there, or he was talking about everyone there?
Oh, okay, excellent question. This is not saying that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold what he says. Rabbi Eliezer was telling us halachically the latest time of reciting Shema is sunrise for everyone. The latest time, according to Rabbi Eliezer, to recite Shema for everyone is sunrise. Rabbi Yehoshua says, I found some people that sleep later, which would allow you to say it up until the end of the 3rd hour. It's a leniency. Our Mishnah talks about a guy who's rushing to say Shema before sunrise. And what we're saying, our Mishnah on Daf Chaf Bet, the fact that it doesn't say, by the way, this is only according to Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't say that. It just states it as fact. That if you're moments before, get up, get dressed, say it quickly. Which sounds like our Mishnah is holding like Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara is answering no. Even if you say halacha is like Rabbi Yehoshua, that's the latest time, but the proper time, like the vatikin, is to say it at sunrise. It doesn't mean Mishnah Chav Bet is telling you that it agrees with the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua. And it doesn't mean that Rabbi Eliezer, it's telling us that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold this way. Rabbi Eliezer holds this way. Our second Mishnah maybe is not holding like Rabbi Eliezer.
Going back to on Chav Bet, it's saying here that their person in the scenario was a vatikin person.
Correct.
Without mentioning why would Rabbi Adam when he's compiling this mishnah, why wouldn't he mention that this person is vatikin?
So very good question. You're asking the question of the tools of a stam mishnah. When you have a stam mishnah, you have one mishnah that says it's a machloket, and then another one shortly after picks one of those opinions. Usually it's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi saying, and this is the opinion we hold like. Usually. Now in this case, the Gemara says, so is that fair to assume in this case? The Gemara says, no, it's not fair to assume in this case because it's possible that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is stating the Mishnah in the proper way of doing it, and the proper way is to do it by vatikin, but or not the proper, sorry, the ideal way. But that doesn't mean it's what's halachically required. It's just the ideal way. And that's how we conclude that ideally you should do it by vatikin, but it's not required. It's not halacha. The Mishnah on Tet is talking about halachic requirements. The Mishnah on Kaf Bet is talking about ideal preference. And the Gemara wanted to know, is it also a halachic requirement? And saying, no, it's possible not. It's possible not. And as long as you could say that, you could ask the question of why did Rabbi Adam say it this way? The answer is because Rabbi Adam is even acknowledging that it's not the proper way of doing it. The proper way is not to wait until the end of the third hour to say Shema. If you have the option of saying Shema earlier or later, you should say it earlier. It's called the concept of zrizut. Zrizut is that when you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, don't push it off. Mitzvah. If you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, don't say, I can do it later, because that's a recipe for disaster. When's the best time to do something? Now. You don't know if there's going to be a later. So this is what Rabbi Adam is teaching us, but that doesn't mean the halacha is that way. Good? All right. Let's go. All right. Remember, the Mishnah said, so if there's enough time for him to get out, get dressed, and say Shema, so do it. If not, ve'im lav, yitkaseh b'mayim ve'ikra. So cover yourself up with the water, which means, like, let's say you're up to your waist. Like, no, like, go under the water, cover yourself up, and say Shema. Obviously, you have to be able to say the words and hear it, so you can't be under the water. Yeah, maybe you go up until your neck. Now, the Gemara says, v'harei libo ro'eh et ha'erva, but we have a problem. The problem is his heart sees his private area. We spoke about this in the past, that there's a requirement that your upper body has to be separate from your lower body via a belt. To separate someone's heart, where his concentration is, separated from his private area. It's a mindset, setting a proper mindset. So this guy who is in the water, he's not wearing a bathing suit, he's going to the mikveh. So he's undressed. So you say cover yourself with water. But everything is there. Your heart is not separated from your lower body. So the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer gives us the following answer. Others say that no, it's the opinion of Rav Acha bar Abba bar Acha in the name of Rabbeinu, which is Rav. By the way, incidentally, Rav Acha, this rabbi Rav Acha, his father's name was Abba bar Abba, and his father's name was Acha. So you see, Acha was named after his grandfather. And we do this, right? Sfaradim will name after grandparents even while living. Ashkenazim, the practice is not to do it while they're living. They do it only after they pass. But Sfaradim have the practice, for the most part, to name after the living, after the grandfather. Here you see it. Rav Acha, Bar Abba, Bar Acha. He was named after his grandfather. Was Acha alive at the time? I don't know. So I don't know if he was Sfaradi or Ashkenazi. But no, there was no Sfaradi Ashkenazi back then. But we don't have a proof either way. But either way, V'itema. So Rabbi Eliezer or Rav Acha bar Acha says in the name of Rav, B'mayim achorin shanu. You know why it's okay to say Shema without a belt? Because the water is very muggy. It's muddy. It's dirty. It's almost, what's the word when you can't see through? It's opaque, foggy. It's a lot of good words. It's a Long Island sound. Is it muggy in there?
It's gasoline. It's not pretty to drive by.
Yeah, okay. So because of that, your upper body is separate from your lower body because everything is like dark anyway. The damu semichta, it's similar to solid earth. It's almost as though you're submerged in earth, even though you're not. Therefore, his heart will not be able to see his lower body. Now, obviously, your heart doesn't have eyes. Your heart can't see. But what it's saying is that since it's not clear, there is some separation, and that is enough to get someone in the right mindset of saying Shema.
Figured clear waters of Bahamas.
Yeah. So you should wear a bathing suit. Oh, okay, very good. So Tomer asked an excellent question. Tomer is saying, this guy, you see his tan, Baruch Hashem. He's talking about the Bahamas. He just came back from Mexico. He's already thinking about the next vacation to Bahamas. So let's say you're in the clear waters of Bahamas and it's so clear that you could see every single type of fish in there, and you have your own private area. You're going to the mikveh in the morning, and you want to do like vatikin, and in the Bahamas, you want to pray before sunrise, you're in there and you can see, and it's very clear. What are you supposed to do? You're not on the Long Island Sound. You're in I don't know what the water is there called, but the Hama Beach. Okay, so what do you do? Tana Rabbana, we learn in the Braita, b'mayim selulin, with clear Bahamian water, with clear water, b'mayim selulin, if it's clear water, yoshev bahen ad savaro v'koreh. First opinion, just go under the water up until your neck and read. It's clear, just make sure that the water is up until your neck and read. V'yesh omrim, and a second opinion says, ochran bereglo, sully the water with your foot, which is what Joey said. Kick up the sand and make it a little bit unclear. Now that's going to be temporary, but you're able to use the sand on the floor to kick it up and make it unclear. So you have two opinions. One says just go under the water. The other one says make it muggy. So the Gemara says, V'tanakama, the first opinion, his heart and his lower body is not separate. It's clear waters. So the Gemara says, Kasavar liboro et arava mutar. That opinion that says you don't need to kick it up that opinion doesn't hold that you need to have your heart separate from your lower body. So you see, the requirement to have someone's heart separate from his lower body is a machloket. That's why b'mayim selulin, clear water. One opinion says, like what Joey says, you have to make it dirty. The other one says, no, it's fine. It's fine if the heart sees the private area, as long as you're covered, your head is not seeing it, your head is above, this is below. The fact that your heart sees it, that's not a problem. Okay? Now, happens to be nowadays, if someone goes into a mikveh and is not in a lake, let's say you go over here, there's a mikveh here, right? Somewhere, I don't know where I'm pointing to, but there's a men's mikveh here. You can't kick up any dirt in there. There's no dirt. It's like all cement. So it doesn't apply here. So what should this person do? If you're going according to the opinion that libo ro'eta erva is a problem, then the person has to get up, get dressed, put on a towel, and then pray, say Shema. Okay? The Gemara now introduces another restriction. First restriction was your heart can't see your lower body, and we said it's a machloket. One opinion says, so because of that you have to kick up the dirt. The other one says, no, I don't hold that way. As long as your head doesn't see it, it's fine. So if your head is over and that's under, it's fine. The Gemara says, but there's another one. You have another problem. The person's heel sees the nakedness, introducing to us a new requirement that someone's heel should not be able to see his private area. What does this mean? This means he needs to be wearing some sort of underwear, right? There's two types of way of having a separation. One is a guy has nothing, he puts on a robe, ties it with a belt, his upper body is separate from his lower body. But his heel, meaning his lower body, is not separate from his private area. It's all close by. So there's an opinion here that says that's not enough. Person has to be wearing something to cover his private area, which is common practice. You want to pray, put on underwear, right? This is what it's telling us. So this guy is in the water, and okay, fine, it's a little bit dirty, but there's still an issue that his heel sees his underwear, his private area. The Gemara answers, so he's of the opinion that it's also okay. It's fine for someone's heart to see his private area. It's fine for his heel to see his private area. It's not an issue. That opinion is of the opinion that as long as his head is over, he's fine. Now we're going to talk about the heel of the foot being exposed to the private area, whether that, we're going to delve into that discussion a little more. Itmar. So let's talk about this discussion. It was stated, mutar. If someone's heel can see his private area, which means his private area is exposed downward, mutar, he's allowed to recite Shema. Nogea, let's say his private area is touching his heel, which means there's some other part of his body that is touching his private area. How could it be his heel? The guy is sitting crisscross applesauce or doing some sort of a yoga pose or something. And the way he's sitting is that he's sitting in a way that his heels are folded under, and so his private area is resting on his heel. Can he recite Shema in that situation? Abaye Amar Asur. Abaye says no. Rava Amar Mutar. Rava says it's fine. So now we're learning that if someone is wearing a robe and standing up with a belt, So he's exposed downward, but the robe is covering him, and he has a belt separating his upper body from his lower body. He's allowed to recite Shema. But if in that same situation he's sitting down such that his private area is on his heel, machloket. Abaye says he cannot recite Shema because there's something that's touching his private area which can it can lead to certain things. So he can. It's not a way to be reciting Shema while someone is touching or there's some sort of contact. And Rava says it's fine. It's his own foot. There's no big deal. Rav Zvid matni la lahai shma'ata hachi. Rav Zvid learns this ruling actually in a slightly different way. This is the way Rav Zvid learned this. Rav Zvid said that if there's no touching, but there's exposed downwards, it's fine. And if there's touching, Abaye says asur, Rava says mutar. Rav Chinina actually taught the statement another way. Nogea, if it's touching divrei hakol asur, everyone agrees it's a problem. It's not a machloket if it's touching. If it's touching, no good. It cannot recite Shema if he's resting his private area even on his own heel. Ro'eh, but what happened? What about the situation where he has his robe and he's standing up and it's exposed? Abaye amar asur, v'Rava amar mutar. Abaye says even that's a problem. He needs to wear. Abaye is saying you got to wear underwear, whereas Rava is saying mutar, it's fine. Why? Lo nidna Torah lemalachei hasharet. The Torah was not given to angels. The Torah was given to human beings. And part of being a human being is that sometimes you wear a robe. You don't always. Sometimes you have something that downward is exposed. We're talking about someone in the privacy of his own home. He just came out of the shower. He puts on a robe. He's covered. He has a kippah on his head. He has a robe. He has things tied. And downward is exposed. Rava says it's okay. You're a human being. V'hilcheta, what is the final law? Nogea asur. If his heel is touching his private area, what he means, not recite Shema, asur is prohibited. Ro'eh mutar. But if it's just exposed, it is mutar. So there you go. If you don't own a robe, now is a good excuse to go buy one because you could recite Shema. You could recite Shema in it. Just don't sit crisscross applesauce. And if you're not flexible like me, you don't have that problem. I can't even if I wanted. I'm kidding. But in all, what we learn a few things that are important here. Rava taught us something so very amazing here when he says, "Lo nidna Torah lemalachei hasharet." The Torah was not given to angels, which means there is a sensitivity in halakha to understand things that are overbearingly difficult. If something is overbearingly difficult, then halakha doesn't require it. Which tells you that there is this sensitivity in halakha and that things that are required you can do. If there's something that wasn't easy to be done, Rava would stand up and say, look, the Torah wasn't given to angels. The Torah is given to humans. So there is some consideration to comfortability, being comfortable, being reasonable as a human being. Okay, very good. All right. Remember when I said we're done with the talks of urine and excrement? We were done, but now we're back. Okay? But this is going to be pretty short. The question, okay, let's ask you like this. Let's ask a question. Catheter. Does anyone know what a catheter is? What's a catheter? Yeah, it's a bag. Let's say someone can't go to the bathroom. So what they do is they insert a tube into the urinary tract so that this way it collects the urine directly from the bladder. And then there's a bag next to the person. This happens, let's say someone has a surgery, someone goes to the hospital, so someone's in certain situations, they're gonna have to go to the bathroom. So there's gonna put a catheter to the person so the person urinates. And then it goes in a bag. Okay? So the bag is next to them. I have a question. Someone is doing a surgery, they're in the hospital, and when they're in the hospital, they have a catheter in place. Is there something similar for the backside, Andy? Like a pooping pan? There's a bag that just like captures it? Okay, so similar question. Can this guy recite Shema? There is excrement there, there is urine there, but it's covered. Let's assume the smell is contained because it's covered within something else. You could even see it. Sometimes the catheter, the doctors want to be able to see how much urine there is, so it's like see-through. So that's the question. If you have it's there, what is it? Colostomy bag? Yeah. Okay, it's for fecal matter. So there you go. So it makes sense. A person can't get up, has to go to the bathroom. They have to release. So it goes into some sort of a bag. Let's assume it's covered. But let's say it's see-through. The question is, if you find excrement in something that's covered but see-through, can you pray in front of it? What do you think?
Yeah, no. Can't smell it.
You can't smell it. What did you say?
That's there.
So it's see-through. Let's say it's a bag.
No. So
Imagine a Ziploc bag with urine in it.
I would just look away, like don't pay attention to it.
No. Oh no. I'm not saying that. Correct. Okay, so yeah, there could be something that's like covered within another covering.
Let's say it's visible.
My question is if it's visible. That's my question. Someone. Yeah, let's say for example, a guy is going on a road trip and he really had to go and there was nowhere to stop. Yeah. Okay. Okay, there you go. Andy, Andy, don't say where you are. ICE is looking for these things. Okay, be careful. No, not my friend Andy. He's okay. Everything's good. Okay, so Andy's saying he has a lot of legal documented people working for him on the construction sites, and sometimes they have to go to the bathroom. So they finish the Snapple and then they drink then they release they put the Snapple back into the Snapple bottle, and they close it up and they leave it there. And Andy wants to pray and he sees there's a bottle there and the Snapple changed from brown to yellow. Is he allowed to pray in front of it? Or someone pooped in some sort of a porter potty, something, and there's some sort of a plastic bag that's tied up, or the dog, they do it for the dogs. The guy did it for himself. You have poop in a bag, you could see it. Can you pray there? These are the cases. Okay, you guys are saying you're saying it's covered, but you could see it.
Covered as well now, but seeing following is a problem.
So you're saying you don't have a smell issue, and what if there is no smell but it's uncovered? Would you say it's a problem then? Yes. So you're saying that if it's covered but see-through, you think it would be okay? Oh, you think seeing it is a problem. The very fact that you're seeing is a problem. So even if it's covered, if it's in a Ziploc bag sealed, it would be a problem. It was what you're saying. So you can look the other way, okay? I know you can move, and I know you can look away. My question is, do you need to? Let's say you want to pray while you're looking at it.
The difference between it being far enough away they can't smell it, and it being far enough away they can't smell it, but it's in a bag. They can see.
So again, we spoke about this last time. There's two things. There's odor, which is an issue, but then there's excrement. Praying next to excrement that's odorless is also a problem because you could see it. So sight's a problem. Okay, yes.
We discussed urine, wasn't it? Okay, the ground was but we can still see it.
Yeah, very good. We definitely distinguish between excrement and urine in many ways. And what we said is minadin, urine is only a problem at the time of the actual stream. Afterwards, rabbinically, it's a problem. And the rabbi said it's a problem up until there's some moisture, and there's a machloket about how much moisture. Enough moisture to make something wet, or enough moisture to make something wet that could then make something else wet. But at the end of the day, rabbinically, it's a problem. If it's wet enough, then it's a problem. So now the question is, what if it's very wet inside of a Snapple bottle? So, and it's moist, but it's covered. Okay, good. Someone on the Zoom wanted to say something? No? Okay. Let's go. Snapple bottle. This is the construction site Snapple bottle she'ela. Okay? What do we answer? Share. First, we're going to talk about number 2. Amar Rava. Rava says, Tso'a ba'ashashit. If there is feces inside of a lantern, which is basically a glass case, that's our case, mutar likrot kiryat shema kenegda. He's allowed to recite Shema next to it. So we'll call this the Snapple bottle. The guy has excrement, feces in the Snapple bottle. One is allowed to recite Shema in front of it. Now, Erva, and then let's put this in contrast with something else to understand why. Erva ba'ashashit, if there is a private area that's in a covered area. So, for example, someone's private area is someone is naked and they are behind the glass, but it's a see-through glass. You see someone's erva on the other side of a glass. The person doesn't have to be in the Snapple bottle. It's just that the person is covered by some sort of a glass. Okay? Erva ba'ashashit, if there's nakedness covered only by a lantern-like covering, meaning it's see-through, asur likrot kriyat Shema kenegda. You may not recite Shema. So now what we're saying is, if there's excrement behind glass, cannot recite Shema, even though it's covered. You can recite Shema because it's covered. But if there's erva, nakedness, behind glass, you cannot recite Shema. Oh, what's the difference? So, ba'ashashit mutar, likrot kriyat Shema kenegda. When there's excrement, one is allowed to. Why? Because for excrement, what you need is a cover. Kisui talia milta. The only thing that's important there is a covering. That's contingent upon covering. And it's covered. So it's covered with something that's transparent, but it's covered. So one would be allowed to recite Shema. Erva ba'ashashit asur, but nakedness behind glass is a problem. Likrot kriyat Shema negda. It's prohibited to recite Shema there. Why? V'lo yera'eh becha ervat davar, because the Torah says nothing indecent should be seen. Amar Rachmana, that's what the Torah says. And it can be seen. So the difference between excrement is that excrement requires a covering, whereas erva cannot be seen. And therefore, if you have a transparent covering, it's sufficient for sufficient for excrement to be able to pray there because it's covered, but it's insufficient for erva because it can be seen. Rabbi Yosef brings this question, and I heard Rabbi Leibowitz talking about this, also Rabbi Radner, that you have the question of if someone sees nakedness on a TV screen or an internet screen or on a phone, and it's there, are they allowed to recite Shema in front of it? That's the question. You're in the room, you're watching football, everyone is watching, and then all of a sudden there you go, you have the people dancing come on the screen, and you're saying, I want to recite Shema right now. Can you recite Shema? So Rabbi Yosef asks the question of, is that considered erva ba'ashashit? Is that considered nakedness covered by glass? Now, why would you say it's not the same thing? Very good. Because it's not covering glass. It's digital. It's a digital screen. It's made of it. Who asked me the question a few weeks ago about this question? Yeah, we had this topic come up. It's clear that it's a problem. But Rabbi Yosef is saying, what happens if I want to turn away? Can I turn away? Can I recite Shema if I'm closing my eyes? Am I able to recite Shema in the presence of nakedness? So the answer is no. You're not allowed to pray in the presence of nakedness that's covered by glass. But what is it the same rule? I would say how we spoke about this. So there are certain times that you can avoid it. You should try to avoid it. Certain times you can't. So you can't. But definitely a person should make sure to guard their eyes. And if there's something that they see, even if it's not a real human being in front of them, something that should be careful with. Yes.
When I'm praying towards the east, there's a poster of like a half-naked woman advertising.
What's with the other half? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, very valid question. Yeah, okay, excellent question. Andy has a very nice question. I'm praying somewhere, and then as I'm praying the eastward, there's someone that's dressed indecently. Either a human being that's dressed indecently or a poster that's dressed indecently. So what do you do in that situation? So Andy's saying, is it okay for me to pray to the west, not face it? I think the answer is very clearly yes. Person should not be praying towards it for two reasons. One, we're learning that there is an issue of nakedness that's covered. That's a problem. Lo yir'eh b'cha ervat davar. Now you might say, oh, okay, but it's not a real person, it's just a poster. The answer is obvious because the concentration. Who is thinking about praying when they see this thing? So if a person should look the other way, let's say he can't look the other way, you should at the very least close your eyes. But yeah, this is exactly the type of thing a person should be conscious of. Yes, question?
When we're talking about Bashashit, what is our Rav? Meaning, is this like naked woman? Is it like just immodestly dressed? Her arms short? What is this referring?
Okay, excellent question. So very good question. How do you define what erva is? So on Daf Kavdalad, we actually had a few cases, excuse me, that defined for us what erva was. For example, we had the Gemara that says shok be'isha erva. Shok is a thigh or a leg, depending on how it's there. It's defined as erva. The Gemara there said se'ar be'isha erva, hair. We also then said tefach be'isha erva, one tefach, one hand's breadth, which we then explain that that's not talking about the private area, and that's not even talking about the little finger. So this is an area that's normally uncovered, that's normally covered. So that's really what we're going by. If there's an area that's typically covered and it's uncovered, that's considered erva.
The reason why I'm
Please.
like that is because right before this, we're talking about like your heels seeing your own erva.
Right.
Like that. So and your own erva, it doesn't mean your finger, like your
Right.
Typically
The private area, the genitalia, right? Let's see. Do they say
now that
anything?
we're talking about Ashishim, is this talking about genitalia?
Excellent question. Let's see.
Going back to the show.
Nakedness. So your question is, how is nakedness defined? 17. Anything here? Nothing. Nothing here. Let's see. Rashi kush b'ashashit lantrina belas. Gomer machatzit zechutchit o klav dak mafsik mechitza mafsik b'intayim b'niret b'kisut talim milta b'chitzit tzedaka ma'amim ra'im. It doesn't say. It's a good question of, is this talking about the private area or is this talking about any area that's considered erva? I would assume that it's any area that's considered erva, but it's a good question. It's a good question that needs to be delved into.
So for a man, let's say that's a naked male. Saying what's erva for a man?
So the private area.
Not the upper body at all.
So the upper body, we actually had this discussion in the Gemara, and we said upper body is okay for reciting Shema. It's not okay for praying tefillah. We saw that on the last daf, or maybe the daf before. I think it was on the last daf. So you're asking a very good question. You have to, okay, and I don't have all the answers. I guess you have to sort of really define if there's a specific situation. I don't know. Maybe this is the type of a question that a lifeguard has to bring. A lifeguard is somewhere, and there's someone sitting in a booth, and it's a glass booth. Can I recite Shema? If it's a man, if it's a woman, if it's this area, that area. Yeah, I agree that there's probably a lot of factors here that need to be thought through. Yes, but I don't have all the answers. But simple thing, if there's something that's going to be distracting you, it's a problem. It's a simple rule of thumb. Yeah.
Say that what's erva.
Kol v'isha erva, yes.
Is that a restriction here too? Like you're trying to pray and hear one talking?
So that doesn't have to do with this.
Like with the covering.
Yeah. So it's a good question about how to deal with. So this is where the Aruch HaShulchan is of the opinion that these issues of nakedness is something that's typically covered, that's uncovered, will lead people to certain thoughts so they can't pray. So what the Aruch HaShulchan says is that people are improperly leaving their hair uncovered nowadays, but since it's become so common, people don't think twice. You see a woman with uncovered hair, it's not very attractive in a certain way. Therefore, he says it's not an issue. If someone would be allowed to recite Shema in front of it with hair covering, you would probably have the same discussion about women singing. If it's a woman singing, if it's someone that's singing in a very beautiful way that attracts a person towards them. I said this when we learned this. There are certain women and men that are very powerful with their voices, that they are billionaires. Why do you think they're billionaires? Because with their voice, they attract people There's something there. There's something powerful there. So yeah, that's not a place that a person shouldn't be reciting Shema when there's something that's so beautiful going on, because it distracts you. It distracts you, and that's the problem. Okay, good. Yes.
A hotel, sometimes you have these hotel rooms that have modern bathrooms with all glass. In the shower, you can literally see through the glass.
Yeah.
So if your wife is with you, it's your wife, it's not some random woman, and you're praying, and she happens to be showering in that.
Yeah.
place,
Excellent question.
is that okay to like pray while she's taking a shower? And okay, you might see her, but it's your wife, it's not just some random.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Rama's excellent question. Gave us a very practical example of erva ba'ashashit. Erva ba'ashashit.
Transparent shower.
Nakedness in glass is if there's a glass door of a shower glass door. Excellent question. Yeah,
In
that's
Las Vegas, many of the showers are all transparent, you can see right through.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes an excellent question. So this is exactly what our case is here. What we said is so'ab ashashit is mutar. If it's excrement that's covered by glass, one is allowed to recite Shema, but erva b'ashashit asur. So one would not be allowed to recite Shema if they're able to see that.
Even if it's your wife.
Even, yeah. Exactly. Very good.
So if you turn
Excellent.
the other way, but you can still pray.
That's a technical question about whether turning the other way is sufficient or not. What I was saying is that's like what R Yosef was having in his discussion about television or screens. It's a technical question. It's best to turn the other way. The best is not just to close the eyes, but to actually face the other direction. That's what someone should do. It's a big machloket. Some opinions, like the Mishnah, I believe, says that you need to face the other way. You cannot say it while you're facing, even if your eyes are closed. While others are lenient and say, no, if you close your eyes, it's enough. What I would say is if a person can face the other way, they should. If they cannot do it subtly, then they should somehow cover to make some sort of a covering. Like I said, if let's say you're saying Berachot Hamazon or something, and you could just like hold the siddur by your face like this, that would be the best. If you can't do it, you can't do it. So then close your eyes. You also have to be smart. You have to be smart. You can't all of a sudden walk around the streets of Manhattan like this and start knocking into people. And plus, I don't know if we even want to be going to Manhattan anytime soon. Or do we, Adam, we want to go to Manhattan or no? You don't think so? Okay. All right, let's keep going. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara now wants to ask a question of, is there any difference when it comes to nakedness between Yehudi, Yisrael, a Jew, and an Oved Kochavim, an idol worshiper? The idea being that someone who is worshiping idols to a certain extent becomes repulsive. The person's actions makes them repulsive. So does that give you any leniency with their nakedness by saying like, it's like, if I see a naked dog, it doesn't matter. This person, the way they're acting is very repulsive. That's the question. And the Gemara is going to answer, no. The person is the person, and they could create the same type of thoughts, whether the person is an Oved Kochavim or not. And therefore, it's not an issue, but that's the idea of the question. Let's see it. Amar Rav Yehuda says, Goy arum asur lekot kriyat shema kenegdo. Is it Goy or is it Akum? You have Oved Kochavim, right? I don't know why they have a different text here. It's not a Goy. Here, So'av, Ashashit. Okay, Amar Abaye, So'av.
Wait,
What, did I skip something?
yeah, I feel like you skipped Amar Abaye part.
Okay, sorry, you're right. Let's go up a little bit to Amar Abaye. Thank you for catching that. Let's go up to Amar Abaye. Amar Abaye says, So'a koshu. Let's say there is a drop of excrement. I don't know what happened. The guy was wiping, and let's just say it's pretty clear after he left the bathroom that this guy, we now know, doesn't wash his hands. Okay, so let's say there's a drop of excrement that he has with him. Mivatla berok. So what are you supposed to do? Here's a trick. You can nullify it through spit. If you spit on it, we're talking about a drop. It's just a small drop, a small amount of poop. You spit on it, it gets mixed up, it becomes allowed. Amar Rava says, uvrok aveh. As long as the spittle is thick, you gotta like go deep and bring up some, what's it called, a lugi? Yeah, you have to have some phlegm. then like you really make this drop of excrement insignificant because it just gets mixed up with everything. All right, whatever. Amar Rava says, so abeguma, let's say there's a hole in the ground and there's excrement in there. What are you supposed to do? You're in the middle of your prayer, you're about to start praying, there's a hole in the ground and you see there's some excrement in there. This is from Andy's friends at the construction site. You see the hole? Oh, the guy made himself a makeshift toilet. And he sat down and there's a hole in the ground. Okay, so what do? Maniach sandalo alea. You could stand on top of it, put your foot over it. We're talking about if there's no smell. If there's a smell, it's another issue. Here we're talking about the actual thing. You're basically covering it by putting your foot on top of it with your sandal, your shoe. He places his sandal over it to cover the hole. The correct Shema, and you could recite Shema, which means his shoe could be acting as a cover. Ba'a mar bereider Ravina. So the son of Ravina asked the question. So ad devuka b'sandalo mai. What happens if now the excrement is stuck to his actual shoe? I understand that if I have excrement in here, all right, I have excrement in here, and then I put my foot on top without touching it, that's considered a cover. But what happens if there's excrement, then I put my shoe on top of it, and now it's attached to my shoe? Is it a problem? The Gemara asks, the Gemara answers, teku. We're not sure. Teku means let this one stand, which means I've had enough of this discussion. That's really what teku means. It's like I don't know the answer. The Gemara sometimes doesn't know the answer, and when you don't know the answer, what are you supposed to do? It depends. In certain situations, you have to be strict. In certain situations, you could be lenient. There's like a famous explanation that teku stands for tishpi, which is like Eliyahu Hanavi, itaretz kushiot v'bayot. Eliyahu Hanavi will give us the answer, which means one day we're going to have some things clarified by the Sanhedrin. They're going to have courts, and these laws at that point will be clarified. It's very important to know that sometimes you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Sometimes I'm studying something in the parasha, I don't have my answer.
So we get Tishpi,
Tishpi, Yitaretz, he will answer Kushiot v'abayot, questions and logical questions. Strong questions, logical questions, or there's different permutations of the statement. But the idea is that Eliyahu Navi will give us an answer. The point is that sometimes you have questions that you don't have answers. It's okay. Sometimes on the parasha, I have a question, I don't know what the answer is. I'll make some note and I'll say, I have a question here. The answer, Sarich Iyun. Sarich Iyun means I need to look into it. And then you move on. You can't let things get you stuck and then stay there forever. Sometimes the answer is, I don't know. This is a concept called Sarich Iyun. Sarich Iyun means it needs further investigation.
You have to go deep.
You have to go deeper, meaning I don't know the answer. And you'll see very often there's questions that come up and it's we're not sure what the answer is. This time the Gemara itself is saying, it's a good question. The sandal is covering it, yes, but there's contact. Does the fact that we're in contact make it not covered? But it is covered. But it's covered to my shoe. I'm not sure what the answer is, so the Gemara says teku. This question is left unresolved, and maybe one day we'll get some sort of an answer. Maybe there's some other Gemara, maybe there's some other situation, maybe one day Eliyahu Navi will come, Sanhedrin will come and give us an answer. But for now, the Gemara is telling us, we're not sure. Let it stand. Okay? Yes. No, if it smells, it's a problem. Remember, if there's smell without a source, it's a problem. Here we're talking about there's a source, but there's no smell. If there's a smell but no source, it's a problem. Meaning someone farts, you're not allowed to pray there. If there's a source but no smell, it's also a problem. If there's excrement there, he's not allowed to pray. What do? You have to cover it. Can you cover it with a see-through glass cup? The answer is yes, as long as it's covered. Can you cover it with your foot? The answer is yes. Can you cover it with your foot and actually touch it? We're not sure. This is what it's asking. Can you cover it with saliva or what's it called when you spit? Expectorant. Yeah, can you do it? Cover it with phlegm. The Gemara says yes. You can cover it with phlegm. You can cover it with spit. These are things that you can cover it with. It needs to have some sort of a covering. Okay. Now going to that question of Oved Kochavim, a idol worshiper. Here they put it as goy, but over there it has it as Oved Kochavim. if is that person's nakedness considered nakedness for the purposes of whether someone is allowed to pray next to that person in their ashashit or not. And I explained, someone who is an idol worshiper, their actions make them repulsive, and now the person is not viewed any different than an animal. That's what the Gemara's question is, and the Gemara says, no, that's not the case. A human being that's naked has the law of nakedness, even if their actions are improper. Goy arum asur likrot kriyat shema kenegdo. A idol worshiper, ovet kochavim, that's naked, one may not recite Shema next to the person. My area goy. So the Gemara says, why are you asking about an idol worshiper? I feel Yisrael nami, also with a Jew. Yisrael pshitale dasur. Obviously, with a Jew who's naked, it's a problem to recite Shema there. Ela akum itzrichalei. For a Gentile or for an idol worshiper, it's coming to ask this question. You might have thought it says in regards to an idol worshiper. Asher bisar chamorim bisaram. The way they act, their flesh is like donkeys, which means they act like donkeys. So you might have said they're like donkeys. They're like donkeys. Kamash malan. The Gemara answers no. The inunami ikre erva. Nakedness is nakedness, irrespective of how they're acting. It's considered erva. Dichtiv erva taviem norahu, as it says by Noach's sons after Ham did something to his dad Noach, and he was left naked. The other two brothers, Shem and Yefet, they went with a blanket covering him backwards to go cover him, and they didn't look at their father's nakedness. And even for him, even though he wasn't someone at Mamad Har Sinai, he wasn't necessarily someone that was the law following the rules of monotheism. Not necessarily, he wasn't necessarily. Still, it's considered erva. Okay, let's keep going. Now, remember when we said someone who is in the mikveh, it's almost sunrise, he wants to recite Shema. What should he do? Very good. If there's enough time for him to get out and get dressed, he should. To recite Shema, he should. If not, stay covered. Oh, but now that's telling us that you could recite Shema in water. What happens if the water has a very bad smell? What happens if it's foul odored or it's laundry water, which is disgusting? So the Gemara says, no, that doesn't work because it has a bad smell. One may not cover himself with foul odored water or with water that was used for laundry until there's water in there. The Gemara is asking, like, what do you mean water in there? The whole water stinks. You put in a drop of water and what's it going to do? You can't add water to a body of water that stinks, add a cup of water and the smell doesn't go away. You have dirty, detergent, smelly water, you add a cup of water. It doesn't do anything. So the Gemara asks, how much water can you possibly add to it? This is what it means to say. One may not cover himself and recite Shema with foul-odored water at all, or with laundry water at all, period. And when it comes to urine water, let's say there is water that is for urine, and he wants to cover himself in it to recite Shema, which is nasty. But the question is he allowed to? The Gemara says he can if he adds in some water. And once he puts in some water into it, he would be allowed to recite Shema. The Gemara is going to ask, how much water does he have to add? And then we're gonna let's go through this flow. I know there's questions. Let's go through this flow. How much water must someone add? Think about the case. The guy is in a body of water that has urine in it. He wants to recite Shema, so he needs to dilute it. How much does he need to add in order to dilute it so that it's no longer considered urine? Koshu. The first opinion says anything. You put in any water, that's enough. Rabbi Zakai Omer Revi'it. Rabbi Zakai says, no, you need to put a Revi'it. A Revi'it is about 3 ounces worth. So not a drop, but 3 ounces worth. This is the machloket. One opinion says, for the purposes of reciting Shema, submerged in Meraglaim. First opinion says, putting in any water is sufficient. Rabbi Zakai says, no, you need to put at least 3 ounces, a Revi'it. Rav Nachman says, machloket lebasof. The discussion about whether it's just a drop or 3 ounces, that's only after the fact. That's only after there's already urine there. Aval b'tchila, but before the fact, kol shehen, even any drop of water would be allowed, which means that if someone were to urinate into something that already has water, then it never has the status of urine, because every drop of urine goes and becomes nullified to the water that's there. So the question here was that if someone urinated and now wants to remove the status of urine from it, what does he have to do? One opinion says put in a drop, the other one says no, put in 3 ounces. But if there was already water there and he urinated into it, then everyone agrees that anything that is always going to be considered nullified, it doesn't have the status of urine. That's the first opinion that what Rav Nachman says. Rabbi Yosef Amar machloket lechatchila. Rabbi Yosef says no, the machloket is before the fact. If someone is going to urinate into water, how much water must there be there for this to all be nullified? Then there's a machloket. One says 3 ounces, one says just a drop. Aval basof. But afterwards, divrei hakol revi'it, everyone agrees that in order to take the status of urine away, you need to have at least a revi'it, which is 3 ounces. Amar Rabbi Yosef the Shamer. Rabbi Yosef once told someone who was working for him, I need, bring me the 3 ounces. I want to hold like the strict opinion of Rabbi Zakai. Okay, look, we don't need to talk about this too much, but there's some questions of if there's something that has urine in it, how you could remove the status of urine by how much water you need to put. I don't want to delve too much into this.
So would you even be where this would happen?
This is what I'm saying. I don't want to delve into it. There's situations. Be creative. Come up with a situation the swimming pool. Yeah, the kiddie pool.
The urine has to be into the swimming pool that was already there anyways.
Correct. Correct.
So it's nullified to begin with.
Correct.
On the first
Tiny swimming pool.
question,
Yeah.
What about if you're like by the Dead Sea and there's the smell of the sulfur in the Dead Sea and you can't pray there? So the smell is really bad.
I don't know. It's a bad smell?
It's the worst smell of sulfur because the sulfur bath's right there.
I don't know. If it's a foul odor, one may not pray there. I'm not sure about the particular place that you're speaking about. I don't know, but if it's a foul odor that's really bad, can't concentrate, can't pray there. Okay. I really just want to finish this. I can't finish it. We're almost done with the chapter. We're on the next. Can you guys give me like 10 more minutes? I really just want to finish this, guys. No questions. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, all right, let's talk about this. Graf shel rei, a toilet bowl. So they used to not have running water. So they would have like a pail that you would poop in, or a pail that you would pee in. So the pail that the person would poop in, they call it a chamber pot. Graf shel rei. It's a pot of excrement. The avit shel meraglaim, or similar thing, a pot that someone urinates in. Those things. So now think about what we're talking about. We're talking about a portable pot that someone urinates in or poops in. That asur lekot kriyat Shema kenegdan. One may never recite Shema in front of that. Even though they're clean. You know what I'm thinking about? What? A toilet for sure. A toilet is a vessel that is used for gathering urine or poop. That is considered a graf shel rei. Even though it gets flushed away, even if it's clean, one may not recite Shema in front of the toilet. Remember, I mentioned when we had our discussion with Joey's question last week, that Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul says that if someone is in his bathroom next to his sink, not next to the toilet, he's allowed to, for example, study Torah or listen to Torah. This is what Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul says. But the toilet itself has the status of graf shel rei, of this pooping thing. The other thing I'm thinking about is potty trainers. How do you potty train your kids? Yeah, so there's different ways. Some ways, like you put like a little toilet seat on the actual toilet, and the child sits on the toilet, and you flush it away. Then there's others that there's like a little mini toilet that's on the side, and like
It has even a flush thing on it also.
Yeah, but it doesn't go anywhere, right? But like it's basically like a little seat, and the child poops, and it stays there until you clean it out. That's a graf shel ra'i. It's a container that's meant to contain to capture going to the bathroom. So that you can never recite Shema, even if it's vash clean. If it's wiped clean, you just Corona wiped it with clean. I meant Corona. I meant Kleenex wipe. You did a full Clorox wipe and it's fully clean. It's still a problem. Omer raglaim atzman. Now, Rama, this might be more relevant to what we were talking about. What about if there is actual urine in front of him? Is he allowed to pray there? So now the answer is if he dilutes it. If he dilutes it, he would be allowed to pray. So here, think about the case of the Snapple bottle on the construction site. It's pure urine that's open. He cannot. But if he wants to pray there, if he dilutes it, now we're seeing that he would be allowed to pray there, even though it's moist, but it's losing its status of urine when it's diluted. So the Gemara asks, how much water does he have to put in there? Kolshu, anything. You just put a drop of water, it dilutes it and removes the status of urine. Rabbi Zakkai Omer Ravit. Rabbi Zakkai, consistent with his opinion, says no, you need to put at least 3 ounces. Now, let's say this is in someone's bedroom. Perfect example is, let's say someone is in the hospital, and like we said, they are in their room, they can't go to the bathroom, so they urinate, and they have this graf shel ra'i, this pot that they have your urine in, or their excrement in, it's in their room. Okay, and then they have their bed. So the Gemara says, ben lifnei hamita, ben le'achar mita. Whether it's this pot is in front of the bed or it's behind the bed, which means it's separate from him, regardless, it's a problem to recite Shema. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rashbak says, Le'achar hamita koreh, if this pot is behind the bed, which means there's a separation between you and it, koreh, one may recite Shema. Lifnei hamita, if it's in front of the bed, which means it's next to you, eno koreh, you may not recite Shema, aval marchiku arba amot v'koreh. But what you can do is you could distance yourself 4 amot from it and then read. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, "Afilu bet me'a ama," even if the room is 200 feet long, the size of a football field. Lo yikra ad sheyotziem o sheyanichem tachal hamita. You may not recite Shema if you have this pot with poop in it. Even if it's the largest room, from this corner to that corner, it has to be either covered or out of the room. Okay, so we have these 3 opinions. One opinion is telling us whether it's in front of the bed or it's behind the bed, as long as you put, let me just read this. The first opinion says that the urine, as long as you put a splash of water in it, you could recite Shema there, whether it's in front of the bed or behind the bed, even if you're right next to it. The next one says no, if it's behind the bed, it's okay. If it's in front of the bed, it's not okay, but you need to go 4 amot away from it. And then the last opinion says no, if it's in the room, it's a problem. Okay, the most strict. Ibayalahu. The Gemara asks the question. Hechi kamar. Remember that second opinion, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel? What did Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel say? He says behind the bed it's okay. In front of the bed it's not okay. Just go 4 amot away. So 4 amot away from which one? Are you saying that it's behind the bed as long as you're 4 amot away from it, you're allowed to? Or is he saying that behind the bed, no matter what, you could say it, if it's behind the bed, but the bed is right next to you. But in front of the bed, in order to say you need to distance yourself 4 amot, okay, so what is the answer? If it's behind the bed, you could read as close as you are to it, as long as there's a bed separating you from it. But in front of the bed, meaning it's next to you, there's nothing in between, so you need to distance yourself 4 amot. Or maybe this is what he's saying. If it's behind the bed, he's allowed to distance himself 4 amot and then read. But if it's in front of him, he cannot recite Shema. So this opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, he says behind. You get what I'm saying? Behind the bed means there's something separating between you and it. Rashbak says if it's behind the bed, you could do it. If it's in front of the bed, you can't. And then he just throws in there, just go 4 amot away. Okay, 4 amot away, which is about 6 feet. Are you telling me that if it's behind the bed, I need to also distance 6 feet in order to say it? Or are you telling me that if it's in front of the bed, I shouldn't say it unless I walk 4 amot away? And if I walk 4 amot away, I would be allowed to say it. That's the question. Tashma, let's see what the answer is. We have another braita that says that Tanya, Rabban Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Elazar, who was the last opinion, he says, Achar amita koremiyad, if it's behind the bed, you could recite Shema right next to it. Lifnei amita, if it's in front of the bed, there's nothing separating you, marchik arba amot. You need to distance yourself 4 amot. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, I feel about bet me'a ama, even if the room is 100 amot long, 200 feet wide, he says you need to either take the urine out of the room or cover it. So here in this braita, it states explicitly that the 4 amot helps if it's in front of the bed. If it's in front of the bed, walk 4 amot away. Bayan ishetelan. So it answers our question. But matnayata kashina adadi. But now we have the opinions are going against each other. In the first braita, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel tells us that behind the bed is okay, in front of the bed is a problem, unless you're 4 amot away. And Rabban Shimon ben Elazar tells us that if you're in the same room, even if the room is huge, it's a problem. The Braita says the same thing, just switches the names. The first one is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabban Shimon ben Elazar. The second Braita switches the views, says Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is the one that says that in front of the bed, just distance yourself 4 amot, and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is the one that says if you're in the same room, even if the room is huge, it's a problem. So the Gemara says, what do you do? So the Gemara says, Epoch Batraita. So the second one, just switch the names. We got the names of the second Braita wrong. So Mai Chazita da Pacht Batraita Epoch Kamaita. How do you know the second one's the names are wrong? Maybe the first one the names are wrong. The Gemara says, I'll tell you how I know. Man Shamat Le Damar Kule Bait Karba Amot Dameh. Who is the opinion that says that the entire room, even though it's massive, is all considered like 4 amot? Like a room that's gigantic is all considered the same 4 amot. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Therefore, if I have to switch opinions, I want it to be consistent and reconcile with this opinion that I know about Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, that he says the status of a room, no matter how large it is, the entire room has the status of 4 amot. So he's the one that says that if there's urine anywhere in the room, even if it's 100 amot wide, it's going to be a problem. So we'll stop here. Thank you for bearing with me for a few more minutes. We're still not done, but we're almost done. Hopefully, very soon, we're going to be done with the Mishnah, with the Perek. We'll be done with the third Perek. And I think we're going to do a siyum of the third Perek as we move on to the fourth. So stay tuned. Be'ezrat Hashem, in the next week, or I know some people might be away for the next week or two. We'll make sure that we'll talk about scheduling. But then, Be'ezrat Hashem, hopefully in another 2 more classes, we'll have a siyum on the Perek. Okay? Have a good night, everyone.
Student and the candidates familiar today.
Hazak Baruch.